Welcome back to the Journalistic Revolution. In this segment, we'll be talking about some new events that came down from the Occupy Wall Street.
Yep, this happened a few days ago. I think it was on the 23rd.
Now, as much as we like to, well, for me personally, I can't speak for Robert, the Occupy Wall Street is a little misguided, a little unorganized.
I love civil disobedience. I just like to see people out there pissed.
Yeah.
But,
and I agree, but there's a better way to do it.
Yeah, well, I've been an activist since I was 16 years old, and there's a certain way to create civil disobedience in a nonviolent way, and I just don't think that Occupy Wall Street has enough experience at doing it. Okay. But anyway, I do like what their original message was. I do like their tactics, and I do like what they stood for before they were co-opted. But anyway, Occupy Wall Street. This came from Reuters. A Cook County judge on Thursday dismissed charges against 92 people arrested last October during an anti-Wall Street Occupy demonstration in Chicago, and said a rarely applied city curfew law violated their constitutional right to free assembly. That was when police arrested over 300 protesters for violating a city ordinance for curfew. The park closed at 11 p.m., so after 11 p.m. they arrested everybody involved in the movement. 92 people, of course, were let go. This is a win. That's good. That's a win for civil liberties. I may disagree with Wall Street now, the Occupy movement now, but the fact is that's liberty at its finest.
And it is. And I like it when a judge comes to the defense of the Constitution and civil liberties. Kind of like the judge that came out and put a judgment on the NDAA. But then immediately another judge went and crapped on that decision and completely broke the Constitution. So I like to see judges following their oath.
Yeah, and I like to see logic because Cook County Court Judge Thomas Dinley said that the city had made an ad hoc exceptions to the curfew for permitted groups. Grants Park's history makes it clear that it constitutes the quintessential public forum. That's because it was one of the sites for the large protest during the Vietnam War during the Democratic National Convention in Chicago back, whenever that was, 1968. And it has been a gathering point since 1835, and that was 2 years before the city was even founded. So, I mean, it is a very First Amendment related spot where people like to go to protest. I would like to go on to say that even though that I may not always agree with Occupy Wall Street, I just want to point out that I support liberty. I support freedom, and I support any movement that is trying to gain both liberty and or freedom. And Occupy Wall Street, as misguided as I may believe they are, their intentions are the same as mine, and that's to get corporatism out of government, and to get government out of corporatism, and to further expand an economic freedom.
And I pretty much fall in line with that same thinking.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like the Tea Partiers. The Tea Party, the whole reason it was T-E-A, was taxed enough already, and it's been turned into this whole don't tax the rich thing. But you got to remember, the Tea Party was don't tax anybody. Mm-hmm. Cut your spending, right? Get the spending down underneath your revenue from taxes, and then we'll start talking about, cutting taxes or cutting something else.
I often like to think how powerful that movement could have been if
you had the Tea Party attacking the government and the occupiers attacking Wall Street.
And really getting their stuff together and agreeing at both of their points and fighting together for both, where we would be at.
We'd be in a better position, at least politically, because then you would have people who had to pander to both sides, so you'd end up with a social liberal, fiscal conservative, which I'm perfectly comfortable with.
Welcome to the Libertarian Party.
Speaking of the Libertarian Party,
Gary Johnson.
We're going to talk about Gary Johnson next. Why are we going to talk about Gary Johnson? Because this is where we're going to be biased, okay? A lot of my friends out there are writing in Ron Paul. I'm okay with that.
Not a problem.
Hear my argument for a moment, okay? Ron Paul isn't running. And he's even said he's done. He's retiring, guys. retiring. There are people still out there fighting. There's still lawyers out there trying to push for this write-in. But Gary Johnson has...
I believe it's 49 states right now. I think Michigan's really the only one that's fighting tooth and nail to keep him off the ballot.
47.
Oh, okay.
He has 47 states, and the ones that have been challenged are D.C., Iowa, Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Washington. Those are the states where there's challenges for his ballot access.
And I would like to make a point real quick. Going back 4 years ago, Robert here introduced me to Ron Paul.
Mm-hmm.
And 4 years ago, he had that same opportunity to write in Ron Paul.
Mm-hmm.
And he chose not to.
Mm-hmm.
He chose to vote for Bob Barr and the Libertarian Party.
Mm-hmm.
For essentially the same reasons we're making this plea today.
Basically, Ron Paul's not going to win. Even if we all wrote in his name, every single one of us, even us Gary Johnson supporters.
Well, in the 8 states that it's allowed.
In the states that it's allowed. Okay? And even if, but here's another thing else to see too. Gary Johnson isn't going to win.
No, he's not.
Okay? We all know who's going to win, Obama. And we know why. Okay? We're not dumb. But the reason I'm asking you to vote for Gary Johnson just this once, like Gary Johnson said, be libertarian with me just this one election, because all we need is 5%. 5% of the national vote.
The popular vote.
Of the national vote, yeah. 5%, and they open the congressional war chest so we can use them for further campaigns in the future. They have to put us on the ballots in all 50 states in the next 3 elections, so 6 years.
They also have to allow the Libertarian Party to be in all the debates.
Yep, which would be great for pushing the liberty movement. See, like I said about Ron Paul, is the movement was never about Ron Paul. It was about ideals, his ideology.
The message.
The message. And the message is, well, in not so many words, love. That's why we put love in the revolution. It's about understanding that everybody has the right to do what they want as long as they're harming or stealing from nobody else. And that's not Gary Johnson either. And it's not going to be Amash. It's not going to be Obama. It's not going to be Romney. And it was never Ron Paul. It's us. It's you. You are sovereign. You are human, and your life has value. But only to you. And you're allowing someone else to place a value upon you. And they don't care about you.
Mm-mm.
And if Ron Paul was president, he wouldn't care about you either. He would care about the message. He would try to make things to where we could care about ourselves.
And that was really the point of his message. He didn't want to run your life. Meaning he didn't want to have to care about you. He wanted you to care about you and to run your own life and be in charge of yourself. It's not the federal government's job. It's not your local government's job. It's your job to run your life and be in charge of you. And I think that's where we get into this, well, you know, we owe it to Ron Paul for all that he's done to write his name in. Do you really think that Ron Paul is going to open up the newspaper on November 7th and go, hey, 10,000 people wrote my name in? No.
Or is he going to look to see that if we pushed his party, the Libertarian Party, forward?
To move the message forward. Because really that's what Ron Paul delivered to us. Ron Paul didn't deliver himself to us. Because even in his mind, he knew it wasn't about him. He didn't stand by the message because of his name. He stood by the message because it was the message and it was the right thing to do.
Like his wife said, he said, I'm not going to be elected and become a politician. I'm going to be a statesman.
Yeah, I have 2 points to go along with this. One, I know a few people have said, well, Gary Johnson isn't exactly like Ron Paul. And I made this point in a previous video. I'm gonna bring it up again because it bears repeating. Unless you plan on writing Ron Paul's name in every 4 years for the rest of your life, because every candidate that comes behind him isn't exactly like him, your logic is flawed. because it's like the two main topics I've heard about Gary Johnson is, well, Ron Paul is against abortion and Gary Johnson is for abortion. Well, so what? It's still up, as a libertarian candidate, it's still up to the states to decide, regardless of what the presidential candidate believes. Mm-hmm. They want to pass those rights down to the states. So that's for you to work at your local government, your state and local governments. Part two of part one is Gary Johnson believes in foreign intervention in humanitarian efforts. It still has to be passed through Congress. It still has to go through Congress. Gary Johnson isn't going to go and just start bombing people because of humanitarian efforts. No, he still has to get it passed through Congress. And again, that goes down to your state and local, you effectively influencing your congressman to not vote for it. So if that's your only two reasons or similar reasons, consider the source of those reasons. Does it really matter what your libertarian or liberty-minded presidential candidate believes, or what's going to be passed down to your states? My second point is if anybody knows about economics and choice, I like to use this analogy when it comes to our government. Everybody knows that the more choices you have, the better it is for you, because it forces companies to compete and it lowers their price. Think of that same argument on a political level. If you have more choice, if you have a third and fourth party, it forces the other parties to be honest, because they have to compete with more competition. So think about what we talked about, really kind of reevaluate your choice, and if you want, vote your conscience. Whatever your conscience is, we're asking you to vote for Gary Johnson. We will support anybody's reason to vote for whoever they want because that's their choice. And we're not here to inflict. We're here to appeal with your logical sense.
So if we want to uphold that message as a people, we need to remember that Bush is the same as Obama when it comes to the real issues. Obama is the same as Romney when it comes to the real issues. All of them are going to continue the wars, are going to continue the attacks on your civil liberties, and they're going to continue to grow the government, no matter how much they're cutting it in the future. So because of that, we need to make sure that we're using alternative forms of money. And using those alternative forms of money, we steal a little bit of power back because we never gave it to these individuals in the first place. And then once we start stealing power back, we start nullifying their unjust and unconstitutional laws. We make them irrelevant. And then once we start doing that, then we get rid of their spying using Linux phones. They can't track you. And then we do things like Occupy Wall Street and the Tea Party, and we continue that front as well. And we continue the civil disobedience to make them aware that we are angry. And then we vote for liberty-minded candidates, because even though politics is not the only tool, it's still a tool that is readily available to us. Live free now.
I gotta get myself out of this town, and I don't know where I'm gonna be found. This time's for sure. I gotta get up, get out, and get down. This I know. I'm sick of waiting lately, laying around.